something for their best stuff for Shabbat. You know, if they have they don't have a lot of meat during the week, especially our ancestors did not have enough money for meat during the week, so they would save something special for Shabbat, special fish, special meat. You know, you didn't have dessert all week, you would have dessert on Shabbat. So this is a story about someone called Joseph the Sabbath lover. So you can imagine that Shabbat was very important for him. Plop. That was the sound of one lonely potato dropping into Sahara's soup pot. All it had for company was a turnip, a bone, and a sprig of celery. Some dinner, Zahara sighed, but she knew her husband wouldn't complain. He would come in and, as usual, gulp down his soup, kiss her on the cheek, and warmly thank her for another delicious meal. Joseph, dear, she began when he came home, I'm sorry, but the soup is very thin tonight. It can't possibly satisfy your hunger. Couldn't we buy a little meat today instead of waiting? Now, Zahara, you mustn't worry about me. Just hang on for one more day and I'll promise we'll have wonderful treats for Shabbat. And he washed his bony hands and sat down to eat. Zahara knew he was right. Tomorrow was shopping day, and together they would inspect all the stalls in the market. Everyone knew that Joseph saved every penny so they could buy the best for Shabbat. And so the merchants would greet their old friend with anticipation. Here comes Joseph the Sabbath lover, they would say, as they presented their freshest and finest wares. Look what I've been saving for you, Joseph. So Zahara sat quietly next to her husband, and both were dreaming about meat and pastries and wine and warm candlelight, all the while eating nothing more than watery soup. Now, on the other side of town, someone was dreaming too. It was the rich landowner of the estate where Joseph worked. Now, this man should have been sleeping the sweet sleep of someone who knows no hunger or worry, but he wasn't. He was having a terrible nightmare. He dreamed that everything he had, everything he owned and loved would be lost. And not just lost, but taken from him by a poor man with a ridiculously long name. He shook himself awake and laughed breathlessly. Too much wine and spiced meat tonight. How could I possibly lose everything? And who in the world is this Joseph Sabbath, the lover, anyway? What nonsense. Then he promised himself that he would buy some stomach medicine the next day in the market, and he fell back into uneasy sleep. The next morning, the market was bustling with Friday excitement as Zahara and Joseph arrived. Her favorite part of the trip was watching the merchants treat her with great respect, as if she were the wife of a king, not that of a lowly groundskeeper in patched clothes. These tiny buds, snorted one florist to the other, that won't do for Joseph the Sabbath lover. And he presented Zahara with a few beautiful bouquets, waiting her choice anxiously. At the baker's stall, Joseph was eyeing some fruit tarts when the baker began teasing him. You know, Joseph, you're not a rich man. Maybe you should buy something more economical? And Joseph just laughed with her and announced, as he always did, nothing but the best for Shabbat. Soon, as he counted out his money, all the merchants and shoppers around him took up the chant. Joseph says nothing but the best for his Shabbat rest. Now, the wealthy landowner just happened to be shopping nearby to get his stomach medicine. Are you all right, sir? Said the herbalist when he saw how pale his customer has become. Sit down, I'll make you a nice cup of tea. But the landowner stood where he was and asked, Who is that man? Oh, the herbalist follows his gaze. Oh, that's Joseph. Everyone calls him Joseph the Sabbath lover, he said. Every Friday, his shopping trip is the talk of the market. Yes, chimed the butcher's assistant. We save him the nicest things, and he never disappoints us. But how can he afford it, said the herbalist, on the tiny salary you pay him? I? Said the landowner with alarm. Well, what do I have to do with him? I don't know this Joseph, this salad lover. And the landowner was wiping the sweat that was breaking out in his forehead. But you must know him, the herbalist said, ignoring his mistake. He's worked on your estate for years. Well, that was all the rich landowner needed to hear. One of his own workers was plotting against him. Thank goodness he had that dream, he thought, clutching his stomach as it churned even worse. Now he was going to outsmart that scheming Joseph the salad scrubber, or whatever his name was. So the rich landowner went home and began selling everything, his gold and silver ornaments, his animals, his house, all his land, everything, even his clothes. At the end of the week, he had traded it all for one single beautiful, precious pearl, a pearl so round and huge and perfect, he began to feel calm again. Let's see that Joseph get his hands on what's mine now. I'm going to take this pearl and leave this place forever. So the landowner sewed the pearl into the lining of his one remaining hat and boarded a boat for faraway land where he would never be found by Joseph the cabbage scrubber, or whatever his name was. As the landowner's boat left the port, a gust of wind came up and took the hat off of his head. As he watched, a shining scale fish leaped up out of the sea and grabbed the hat and went down into the water. The hat that held his perfect pearl was gone. Well, he thought, pounding his fist against his leg, I've lost everything after all, but at least that Joseph the cabbage grubber doesn't have it either. Now, of course, Joseph knew nothing about the landowner's dream or the pearl or the hat. He was just minding his own business, getting ready for Shabbat. But he was feeling very disappointed. He and Zahara had one more dish to make their Sabbath table perfect. And as it got later and later, Joseph wandered around and around, but he just didn't see anything he liked. Then, all of a sudden, a fishmonger came and showed him, wait, someone just brought me in this beautiful fish. It's perfect, but who will buy it at this late hour? Oh, wait, Joseph, he said. Hey, Joseph, nothing but the best. Here's the perfect fish for you. So Joseph happily bought the fish at once, giving the last of his coins from the bottom of his pocket. Joseph and Zahara went home to their tiny shack, cut open the fish to prepare it for cooking. And what do you know? They found the most extraordinary pearl inside. They invited the whole neighborhood over to celebrate their good fortune and had an even more joyous Shabbat than usual. The next week, they sold the pearl for a lovely estate that had been put up for sale rather hastily, and they lived there in comfort and gave tzedakah for the rest of their lives because they wanted to share their good fortune. And what of the landowner? Well, that's truly a sad case. You can see him sometimes down by the waterfront searching the waves for that grinning fish that swallowed his pearl. And every Friday night he gets a strange look in his eyes and starts muttering something about that rabbit scrubbing, cabbage shoving, salad grubbing sack of blubber. And then he takes one last look at the water and says, or whatever his name is. Thank you. So that's a little bit of that. Of course, it's good when you have good fortune that comes from nowhere to be able to share it with everyone, which is what Joseph and Zahara did. And now we move on to our Havdalah blessings to say goodbye for Shabbat.
Thank you for the story. And we can savor pearls, I guess, right?
Don't put all your eggs. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your money in one pearl. Say.
Or in one fish, I guess too. But yeah. So. So it's good to be back with all of you. And Rachel and Suzanne and I had a conversation the other day about our Havdalah with the bonus, that we've been doing it every week for quite a long time. And now that there's some other programs even happening at the temple, some people are torn about being here or being there. And so we're looking and thinking maybe we might not want to do this every week. We might want to do it on a different kind of a schedule in the future. So think about that, because everybody has the tools to be able to make Havdalah on their own or with others. And there's also the potential that we could gather together, maybe with some of us in one place, and then also be on Facebook with others so we can continue to have Havdalah together. Because one thought I had was, when there's a concert at the temple, we could be in the library for a little bit to make Havdalah as well, and still be outside to hear the music if we want to some of the weeks. So I just wanted to put the idea out there to think about before we start Havdalah for this evening. So I hope that you have something sweet smelling. You have a candle if you want, and also fruit of the vine for making kiddush. And okay, there. 3 times it took me to light it. I think I got everything lit there. Okay. Please join me with the blessings. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshech ben yom hashmi'i לששת ימי המעשה. Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. We take another moment to savor the warmth of Shabbat, the sweetness of Shabbat, the fragrance of Shabbat. the warmth of the wax as it drips from the candle, as we then now prepare to put the candle out in the sweetness of the wine or juice. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimera V'Yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Imashiach ben David, Imashiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi. I invite you to unmute yourself so that we may sing together Shavua Tov, wishing everyone a good week together. Shavua Tov, 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 a good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. I wish everyone a Shavua Tov.
Yes, Shavua Tov.